Hey, everybody, it's Ryan. Thanks for downloading today's show. And just a reminder, as always, Wake Up War Chant is brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central and Township, in the heart of College Town. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, from Tallahassee to Thomasville and from coast to Atlantic coast, it's time to Wake Up War Chant here on 97.9 ESPN Radio, and it's a very happy Wednesday morning, August the 8th, to you and yours, the second day of college football season, at least Florida State season, that is. You're currently listening to the voice of Ryan Kelly. I'm the director of digital media at warchant.com. Good show on hand for you today. Our own Ira Chaffel is going to join us for a good bit of this program. There's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot to get into. So first of all, thanks for waking up with us here at 6 a.m. on 97.9 ESPN Radio, or, of course, the TuneIn Radio app or our own WTSM app. Our podcast, you know where to get it by now. You more than likely have a place that you get it every day if that's how you listen to us, and we thank you so much for doing that. Of course, if you like the show, rate us, subscribe us, give us a good review. Helps us out, and subscribing to the show helps you out. Gives you a brand new episode right there to your device every single day. Radio@warchant.com. Your comments, your questions, your concerns about Florida State, about the show, about anything in general. Heck, we'll talk about movies if you want. Just radio@warchant.com. There's your email address, and @WakeUpWarChant. That's your Twitter account if you like to keep those musings to 140 characters or less. Football season's back underway. We're going to talk a lot about what Jimbo Fisher said and what we saw at practice with Ira Chaffel in a bit. But before we do that, I did just want to go over a couple news and notes type things at practice that Ira and I didn't get to. We did put that interview in the can last night, so I wanted to go ahead and touch on a couple things that maybe we didn't get a chance to look at, including something that Drew and I talked extensively about last week in terms of special teams and Florida State's need to kind of step that up there. But first of all, we'll start with special teams. We see the special teams drill just about every single day, and according to Ira Chafel's notes, Ricky Aguayo looked a little bit more consistent than Logan Tyler, but Logan Tyler just had some kicks where he looked absolutely great. And I'll be honest with you, that's about how it seemed in camp last. Well, I'll say this. Last year, Tyler maybe seemed a little bit more consistent at the beginning, and it kind of fell off as it went on. So that's worth taking with a grain of salt. Of course, special teams, you don't expect any changes there. I don't think Logan Tyler is going to be your place kicker game one. I certainly don't think Ricky Aguayo is going to be your punter game one. But it's good to know that there's at least some consistency coming from your place kicker. Couple different guys working at special teams, though, as returners. Nyquan Murray, Levante Taylor, Derwin James, DJ Matthews, Keith Gavin, Zaquandre Wright, Cam Akers, and Ira even believes that he saw Kalen Laybourne in there as well. That's good news. That's very, very good news. Florida State knows that they've had a problem at this position. They have to know. They have to get better in that return game. They have to be able to break away from more yards, more big plays, more disruption. Special teams can win or lose you football games. They can often be a deciding factor if there are two teams that are very, very talented, very, very equally matched. Florida State knows this is a place that they have not had a great, great player at since really Greg Reed. And to know that you are throwing legitimate superstars out there like Derwin James, legitimate burners, and guys who were great special teams guys in high school like DJ Matthews, Levante Taylor, who was really hyped up out of high school in terms of what he can do as a punt returner and as a kick returner. Nooney Murray, of course, someone we think can kind of step up more into that. Keith Gavin, who we saw have that special moment in the Orange Bowl, and even Cam Akers. To know that all these different guys are all stepping into these roles is a very, very good thing. Lots of other stuff to get to as well, but we can't give it to you all. We can't give every single bit of it to you. That's because it's premium access. And right now is a great time to be a premium member of warchant.com. And you can jump on that and get yourself a really good deal out of that as well. We have a kickoff special going on right now on warchant.com where if you sign yourself up for a year, we're going to give you a ton of free stuff. We're going to give you a tumbler, one of those Yeti-type cups. It's not an actual Yeti, but it is of that style. We have a War Chant t-shirt that we're giving out, a $25 gift card to Garnet and Gold, and you're getting 6 free months for your annual subscription. And, of course, all the perks that come with that, including our premium practice report every single day. You can get all that stuff by using the promo code Noles2017 at checkout. That's Noles. That N is capitalized, by the way, 2017 at checkout to get even more of this practice report, to get even more of those things. And, of course, talk a little bit more about plenty of things going on in Florida State. Another place yesterday named Derwin James, the number one player in the country, and that's ESPN that did that. It's amazing to see kind of the hype that he's getting. And he even kind of seemed a little taken aback from it when we talked to him yesterday. But really, really quickly, I know we didn't get a chance to do it yesterday because we stayed all football, and we felt it was important to stay all football. But for those of you who are maybe looking for your baseball scores over the night, this, ladies and gentlemen, is while you were sleeping.
Hello. Good morning.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake me up! Good morning. Good morning.
What happened last night?
All right, folks, we're going to breeze through these really, really quickly. It's the Angels who beat the Phillies 7-1 in Anaheim. The Tigers beat the Yankees 4-3. Orioles over the Royals in Baltimore 7-2. The Cincinnati Reds defeat the Pittsburgh Pirates 9-1 in Pittsburgh. The Red Sox defeat the Indians 12-10 at Fenway. Fish get it done over the Nationals 7-6 in Miami. 3-2, the Dodgers go on the road and beat the Braves. Brewers hold serve at home over the Cardinals 3-2. Mariners over the Rangers 8-7. Cubbies beat the Diamondbacks 16-4. Blue Jays over the White Sox 8-4 in Chicago. 6-4, the Rays go on the road and beat the Astros. Colorado Rockies 5-4 over the Mets at home. Giants defeat the A's 10-4 in Oakland. And then, of course, the Padres over the Twins 3-0. When we come back, our own Ira Schoffel joins us for an extended talk here on Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by our friends at For the Table. All right, folks, welcome back to Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio as we enter day 2 of fall camp. Well, we still have to unpack everything that went on in day 1. There's a lot of stuff to get to, talking about the quarterback, talking about the opener, talking about the injuries or the lack thereof. There's a lot of stuff that we can jump on with, and there's a lot of stuff that Jimbo Fisher said yesterday in his press conference pertaining to stuff like that. So I'm hoping every now and then we can visit this, you, me, maybe a guest every now and then, unpacking what Jimbo Fisher or maybe a player or a coach said in a statement or in a press conference or just in a media availability. So here it is. This is duly quoted. Quote mode.
We have ways of making talk.
You talking to me?
Okay, I'll stop.
You know I talk too much.
End quote mode. And to help us out with duly quoted today is Mr. Ira Schoffel, the managing editor of warchant.com, who joins me on the phone line. Ira, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Ryan. How are you?
I'm just fine, buddy. This was, I think this was as positive of a day as you could want out of a fall camp for Florida State. To open it like this with as much good news as you got, and to be honest with you, Ira, it all started with this good news.
Great, full go. He really made a lot of progress. He'll be ready to practice. He'll be practicing full go today.
Jimbo Fisher seemed to say that about 6, 7, 8 times in that press conference. I know it was only about 3 or 4 times, but a lot of guys that you weren't really sure about going into camp, the Alec Eberleys, the George Campbells of the world, they're healthy and they're ready to go.
Yeah, also Landon Dickerson, but, those were the big ones that we had question marks about because, coming off of major surgeries and, of course, we haven't seen these guys since the spring. It was, like you said, it was all positive news. There really wasn't anyone that was borderline that we wondered about. That Jimbo came back and said no, he can't play. It was the opposite. It was everybody should be ready to go, and we haven't seen that yet. The first day of practice, of course, is just in shorts and shells. They're not going to be doing any full contact stuff for a few days, but he said they're all cleared, they're all ready to go, and that's a big big news because those are the two positions I think, especially on offense, those are the two positions everybody's concerned about is a wide receiver and offensive line. Not that there's great concern, but there's questions about those positions. And as you said, all the news was really positive.
And on top of that, I didn't even pull this quote for us to run, Ira, but I'm pretty sure last year, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jimbo Fisher came out and he was very, very critical of the team's first day of practice, was not happy with what happened there. And this year, just to kind of hear him say it was a typical first practice, considering how that team kind of responded to criticism and how it kind of slacked around last year, based off all the things you've heard over summer, that this is a team that's really been working hard, that's really been getting after it, just to hear that this was a normal first day, I think is a good sign.
Yeah, and he did say the tempo was good, and that, I think there's a lot of teaching on the first day, just teaching how to do drills. I mean, just literally Brad Lawing with defensive ends was literally having to show guys how to do drills. Same thing at every position. They're not, you'll get to a point where the coaches just call out a drill and the players know exactly what to do, but on day one, you're not at that point. And so it's not a matter of like judging players by execution. What they're judging them by is, the effort, the tempo of the practice, and then when you do give them instructions, how quickly do they learn it? Do they make the same mistake 5, 6, 7 times? Or if you correct it one time, can they get it right the next time? And that shows that they're attentive and that they're really focused on getting better. And as far as that goes, Jimbo said, everything was great. He was really happy with what he saw. And I thought you could tell that by the fact that, just how eager he was to talk after practice. He talked for another 9 or 10 minutes after having a long press conference earlier in the day and basically stopped because we ran out of questions. If we had kept asking more questions, I think he would have stopped, or I think he would have kept talking because he seemed to really be just happy about where this team is right now. Of course, it's only day one, but like you said, that's a good sign.
Going back to what you were talking about, Brad Lawing walking guys through drills, did you catch who he was using to teach other guys those drills?
Well, the part when I was there, he was really heaping a lot of praise on, obviously, the veterans, Brian Burns and Josh Sweat, but also Josh Kaindoh. He seemed to be really high on Josh Kaindoh. And then he had some really good things to say about Janarius Robinson and how far he's come. So I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but those 4 guys seemed to really impress him.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head. It was a freshman. It was Josh Kaindoh. And when I was over there, we've been recording some of the freshmen for their first day of fall camp. You'll see those pieces. We're doing an offensive one and a defensive one. You'll see those soon on warchant.com. But, yeah, when I was over there, it was Kaindoh who was basically using as the model for what to do in these drills, what to do in these situations, what to do in your technique. And that wasn't the case for every freshman. I'm not going to sit here and tell you everybody was ready to go and everybody was great. I mean, there was certainly some adjusting time. There was a little bit of complaint about DJ Matthews maybe needing to pick up the pace. There was a little bit of Marvin Wilson needing to work on his technique. I know, and you'll probably see that in that video that's going to come out soon, and that Odell Hagan spent a little bit of time, here's where your body needs to be. Here's where your feet need to be. There's that adjustment period, and Jimbo Fisher was more than happy to talk about that at his press conference yesterday.
Focus on what you can control, and that's how you practice. And I don't care about that. I'll see a week, 3 weeks down the road, 4 weeks down the road, 6 weeks down the road, whatever it may be. Just handling the tempo, just getting used to. I've never practiced like that. Those guys never practiced that fast, that hard, that many reps. I mean, it's never even close. And I was very pleased with just their attitude, and just jumping right back in and going and going and going. I was very pleased with that.
And I think he hit on the thing that's kind of been different than from years past. Everybody, and he mentioned it right there, especially the freshmen, seemed really ready to learn just wherever you were on the practice field today.
Yeah, and and I think that every team's different based on how much experience you have and how much you have in terms of younger guys who are going to be called upon early. And I think for the most part, very few of these young guys are going to be needed to be big contributors. Now, obviously, I think Cam Akers has got a chance to play a lot of running back. You mentioned DJ Matthews is a guy that, because of a little bit of lack of depth at wide receiver, that he's a guy that may get a look along with Tamori and Terry, the other freshman wide receiver, and then obviously Josh Kaindoh for sure. The way he's looked, the fact that he was here as a spring enrollee and went through spring practice and has had a full off season, I think he's going to factor in as well as he's come along. But a lot of those other guys, you know, and I asked Jimbo about this, you know, some of these guys, like you said, Marvin Wilson, or some of these other, you know, the young linebackers, Leonard Warner, and some of these guys who are coming in and they're automatically third or fourth string guys, you know, to start practice. Well, I mean, I can't imagine Marvin Wilson's ever been third string in anything in his life. I doubt Leonard Warner's been third string or fourth string in anything in his life. Even the first day of high school football practice, those guys were probably among the best of the best because they were so gifted. So, you know, that's a new experience for them. And Jimbo talked about just really telling them not to worry about where they are on the depth chart, that they're not even really thinking about a depth chart right now. It's just about learning what they need to learn. And then over the course of camp, they'll get plenty of chances to show what they can do. And so with this team, I think the nice thing is they can be patient with some of these young guys, because it's not like they're dying for some of those guys to play. If those guys play, it's because they just have that much ability. But it probably won't be because FSU just desperately needs them to play.
What strikes you, even outside of wide receiver, even in places that you have question marks for Florida State, it's deep. Offensive side of the football, you know, you have questions about who's going to be the back at the end of the season. I mean, Jacquez Patrick seems to be the guy now, but you have questions about who that's going to be, but you don't doubt that they're deep, and you don't doubt that they're talented. That offensive line, you know, it hasn't panned out over the last couple of years, but with with the offensive line class that they brought in last year, the guys that were freshmen last year that are now sophomores, you don't question the numbers and you don't question the depth. And that's what I think is cool about this year, and I think is what's great for some of these freshmen. If Cam Akers breaks out, that's awesome. If Marvin Wilson breaks out, good for him and good for that football team. But if those guys need a little bit of time, if those guys need to be carried along a little bit, you have the depth, you have the numbers, you have the talent to take that. I'm not saying that's what you want, because you obviously want Cam Akers to be a superstar in his first year. You want Marvin Wilson to do all that stuff. But if it doesn't happen, if it's slower for those guys, it's not like it's hits you can't take.
Yeah, and I think, you know, really you look at, you know, the depth on the offensive line, as you said. You know, they only signed one offensive lineman this year. A lot of the reason for the depth is, you know, the last couple of classes, in particular the last class where they signed, you know, I think 6 or 7 it was offensive linemen. But, you know, that group, I mean, Rick Trickett has a full 3 groups of offensive linemen. I mean, it's starting 5, second 5, third 5. At running back, I mean, we were talking to Derwin James after practice, and we asked him about the running backs, and I asked him about Jacquez Patrick, and he just, you know, he started off talking highly about Patrick, but then went to Cam Akers and Zaquandre White, and you know, and we've heard so much about Amir Rasul, who Jimbo raved about earlier in the day, and then you still have Jonathan Vickers and Ryan Green. You know, they have running backs for days. I think the one position probably where, at least on offense, the one position where you don't have tremendous depth is wide receiver. And I think Jimbo kind of took issue when that was brought up at the press conference, saying that he loves the freshman receivers they brought in, and he's excited. He thinks that, you know, they're loaded with with Auden Tate and Nyquan Murray, what they did last year, that he thinks those two guys are as impressive as anybody. And then, you know, you have the Keith Gavins, and George Campbell's healthy now, and Devontae Phillips. So, you know, there's not a lot of guys in that receiver corps who have done it, who have proven it at this level. But Jimbo seemed to kind of, you know, bristle at the notion that there's a lack of depth at that position.
The only other place that you could kind of think to yourself, you know, maybe there's not the depth that you want, maybe there's not the talent behind the starters that you want there, is quarterback. But here's the good news when it comes to quarterback, and Jimbo Fisher addressed in his press conference today. For the first time in what seems like a very, very long time, Florida State has a quarterback who's starting his second season for sure as the starter at FSU. And according to Jimbo Fisher, he likes what he sees out of the comfort from DeAndre Francois.
I just see answers, confidence, his reactions to his teammates, his interactions with them and his demands on them and the things he does. I mean, a lot more relaxed, controlling, getting guys to do this, getting guys to do that. And he understands, because he understands something. Last year, he still had to go prove he could do it on the field. And that's one of the best freshman years you ever see.
Now, Jimbo Fisher went on to point out his favorite statistic about how good DeAndre Francois was in the red zone and how good he was on third down and how Florida State didn't turn the ball over a whole heck of a lot. But I think just the idea that you had a quarterback who was very, very good last year, who took a ton of shots that hopefully he's not going to take this year, after the adversity that you have to have as a redshirt freshman quarterback who had a team that didn't live up to expectations early, who had a line that got him obliterated, who had a defense that looked like they didn't care for the first half of the season, all that stuff has kind of made DeAndre Francois, at least in my estimation, really loosen up, and that really, can it get harder from here? Because last year he went through so much. And Ira, you even kind of saw it in ACC Kickoff when he talked to us on this show, when he talked to the media in general. And DeAndre Francois is not exactly known for being, a superstar quote. But if there's one thing that he was comfortable. He was relaxed. He was ready to go. He definitely seems way more at ease with the idea that DeAndre Francois is the starting quarterback for the Florida State Seminoles.
Yeah, and I thought there was just a couple of nice, neat moments, during the portion of practice we were able to see. And we were, I guess we were out there for about 20 or 25 minutes during the first portion of practice yesterday. And, I just thought there were a couple of times like, Jake Rizzo, the redshirt freshman, walk-on quarterback, had a nice throw. And when he came back to the line, DeAndre kind of patted him on the head. And, DeAndre Francois, I think, actually graduated high school either the same year as Rizzo or the year after, because Rizzo didn't come to FSU right away. He took a year off. But anyway, DeAndre, so I guess they're classmates. But when he comes back over, DeAndre pats him on the head like a coach would to a kid. And, I just thought that was neat. And you see that comfort level for him. And you compare it to a year ago, even though he won the starting job, and I think everyone around the team believed in him, especially once he kind of proved it on the field, he did have to supplant a fifth-year senior in Sean McGuire. And I think that there's a dynamic there that, you want to be respectful to the fifth-year senior. You want to let him kind of lead the position drills. You want to let him, kind of be the senior that he is. And I think that, go ahead.
Sorry, not to cut you off, Ira, but which, by the way, is something that a Jimbo Fisher head coach team hadn't had to really experience yet. The last time you had to think about that at Florida State is 2008 when Christian Ponder gets the start over Drew Weatherford.
Oh, no, you're exactly right. And that, it can be a dicey situation. And I remember that situation, we were very curious to see how Drew Weatherford would handle it. He ended up handling it pretty well. And Sean McGuire handled it well, but it's still tough on the younger guy, because he's got to, it's kind of like, at work, if so the new hotshot guy kind of comes in or girl comes in and gets a promotion or gets a raise over somebody who's been there for longer, they're happy about the raise, they're happy about the promotion, but they know that maybe they're getting a jaundiced eye from other people in the office.
And it's also the idea that if you are that backup, you can't cause a division in the locker room. You can't rub things the wrong way. I mean, even if you're not the starter anymore, you are still kind of seen as a leader, and you're still seen as someone who's led the troops into battle before. That can't be an easy situation to balance on the other side of the coin as well.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I do think Sean McGuire handled it well, and I think DeAndre handled it well, but now that's not there anymore. Even though J.J. Cosentino's older, he's never been the starter. He's never been the guy that everybody expected to be the starter. He's kind of been a backup since he's been here. So, when that group goes into a huddle, or when the offense, goes through drills, I'm sure DeAndre, and he's talked about it, how much more comfortable he is being a leader now. I think that's going to be apparent to the teammates. And, and I think it should help them, because he's got a lot of natural leadership qualities. Even though he's not a big, loud, boisterous guy, he doesn't have Jameis's personality, that big, larger-than-life personality. He does have a lot of leadership skills. He's just a little bit quieter.
And there's certainly a confidence, having that newfound confidence and just kind of the at-easeness that he has, I think really has to have an effect on a couple of the folks who maybe weren't bought on DeAndre Francois. But he's been their leader, and he's taken the shots, and he's taken the hits, and now in his second year, the first time in a while, Florida State's had a quarterback going into their second year, and you know exactly who it is. I think that can only be a positive. There is one more thing that Jimbo Fisher said in his press conference that turned a few heads, and we figured it was probably worth giving it its own segment. So stick around. We'll talk about that right after this on Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio.
Yeah, oh yeah, what condition my condition was in.
Yes, Florida State just landed a 5-star commitment.
I don't see that anywhere online. How did you get that news so fast?
I'm on the new warchant.com app. I get news updates and scores pushed to my phone instantly.
How much does it cost?
It's free. Just go to iTunes or the Google Play Store, type in Warchant, and install it on your phone. That's it.
A free app that keeps me constantly up to date on Florida State sports and recruiting? Wow, that makes it incredibly easy to follow my Seminoles and never miss out.
With the app, you'll also get quick access to all the stories and features on Warchant, including the ever-popular message boards that feature thousands of fans talking about the Noles.
Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole source.
Jimbo Fisher said one more thing that was pretty interesting at his press conference yesterday as we roll it on. Wake Up War Chant brought to you by your friends at For the Table. Madison Social, Central, and Township, all there in the heart of College Town. And it had to do with one of the places that people have the most questions about, offensive line. And, well, Jimbo Fisher gave us a pretty surprising answer about who he might have starting at left tackle.
Oh, Ricky Leonard's going to be starting there. Ricky will be there. So, but we'll have other guys. I mean, we'll have Juwan behind him. We'll have Josh. If we try somebody else, we could try anybody over there. You know what I mean? In what we do. But we're going to start Ricky there in the beginning and have Brock at right tackle along with Derek Kelly, and then Ball and Juwan. Let those guys all play at tackle and see which ones are the best ones right now.
So we bring back in Ira Schoffel, the managing editor of WarChant.com. And Ira, I don't think anyone saw that one coming.
No, especially since the way Jimbo answered that question in the spring, because I remember we asked him in the spring, with Rod Johnson leaving, would it make sense to maybe move Rick Leonard to the left tackle position and try somebody else at right tackle, since usually left tackle is where your best pass blocker is because of the blind side. And, during the spring, Jimbo kind of shot it down and said that, he already felt like Rick Leonard was more comfortable at right tackle. It didn't make sense to make him uncomfortable and put him on the left side and then move somebody else to the right side who might not be as ready there. And so to come out, first day and, Rick Leonard is for sure starting left tackle was a little bit surprising. But I think if you're a Florida State fan and trying to read into that, I think you have to be really excited about what that means because, Rick Leonard, when we saw him last season, the first few games early last season, he'd only been an offensive lineman for like 6 months. He made the move in spring practice from defensive end, and he was really raw, and it showed. He goes to the bench for about 6 weeks and then comes back late in the season. And I thought he looked really good the last few games of the season at right tackle. Now he's had another spring, another full offseason at that position. And I think for them to be this confident to say, okay, first day of preseason practice, we're putting you at left tackle, I think that says a lot about his development.
And I'll understand the people who are still kind of wary of this because this time last year, to freezing cold take, I think just about all of us, Ira. You just looked at Rick Leonard when he was out there and he moved offensive line and he started playing a little right tackle. And just because of how he's built, just because of what he looks like, he just looked the part so well. But he was still raw and he was still completely, I guess, I don't want to say unfounded in what he was doing, but certainly didn't have the foundation, especially that some of the nose tackles and defensive ends and defensive linemen in general that he was going up against did. So that being said, you're right. I'm with you here that it seems way more likely to me that he has matured enough and they're comfortable enough with him. And Jimbo Fisher even said that he was impressed with his maturity at the role and at the position. This seems way more like that than we're just going to throw stuff against the wall and see if it sticks. I think if Rick doesn't work out, that might be what the plan is. But for now, that's a big, big move for him to feel that way from spring to now.
I mean, look, there's no reason you couldn't have done what you I mean, okay. I mean, you could look at it. There's obviously it could be glass half full or glass half empty. You could say that, okay, they're so concerned about the redshirt freshman offensive tackles who played there a lot in the spring, Josh Ball and Juan Williams, that they're so concerned about those guys against Alabama that you're going to move Ricky Leonard over there, even though you don't feel great about him. You're just so concerned about the young guys. I mean, you could look at it that way. But I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think that that's probably part of it. But I think the bigger thing is that Ricky Leonard now has played that position for a year and a half, and he's a guy that from day one, like you said, when he made that move, I mean, Rick Trickett was on the top of the world about him. He thought, he's got a chance to be a big time NFL player at offensive tackle, and I think he's had the time now to prove it. Now, if they go into this game against Alabama and he doesn't play well, then not only does it say that that he hasn't come as far as we maybe would have liked, but it may say that the redshirt freshmen really aren't ready either. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens on the other side too, because with Leonard at left tackle right now, I mean, Derek Kelly, it looked like was taking most of the snaps with the ones, at least for when we were there on Tuesday. And then Brock Rubel after him, and Derek Kelly. Both of those guys have started before, but neither one of them looked like a superstar when they started before. So, we need to see what kind of improvement they made as well.
Alec Eberle, of course, another guy on that list of folks who are maybe in competition with the job up for grabs, and Jimbo Fisher kind of seemed clear that he really prefers Eberle be that guy against Alabama.
Yeah, it was very clear. And again, I think that that makes sense. And I started feeling that way more and more kind of as we got away from the spring. During the spring, Eberle was out with a hip injury. He had hip surgery, and, he was going to be out all spring and for some of the summer. And, Bavion Johnson, another redshirt freshman, and Andrew Baselli, another redshirt freshman from that big class from 2016, were getting all of those reps, and they're impressive. Those guys are both very impressive. And Eberle had struggled at times when he was a starter. So I think we all kind of started thinking, okay, that's going to be a real competition in the fall. But the further away we got away from spring, and the more I started talking to people, I really got the sense that they were going to go with Eberle if he was healthy. And Jimbo said he's fully healthy and he's going to be the guy. And one of the other things that we heard from Jimbo last week in Orlando was, and he mentioned it again at the press conference yesterday, was that Eberle's surgery was a big deal because it's not like a surgery to repair something that happened in practice or happened in a game. It was surgery to repair something that's kind of been hindering him for a long time, something about the something on his hips where they actually had to shave some bone off to help with his flexibility. And Jimbo said this is something that happens with certain guys. Certain guys have this condition, and they got it taken care of. And he said that he's squatting more than he's ever squatted. He's much more agile. So yeah, I don't think there's any question he's the guy. And unlike the tackle positions, which I think probably could be over the course of the season, it wouldn't shock me to see some movement there, even in camp. I think if Alec Eberle, the vibe I'm getting now is if he's healthy, I think he's going to be the starter all year.
Think if you're Alec Eberle or if you're Rick Leonard, and the first time and the first impression that people are going to get of you, and you even kind of mentioned it with Rick Leonard, think about if your measuring stick for how far you've come comes against the Alabama front seven. That is not an easy task at all, and Jimbo Fisher even kind of pointed that out yesterday when he was talking about Alabama as an opener and what challenges that brings.
I think it's one of the things you could test yourself. I mean, you find, and they're going to test themselves with us. You find out where your team's at early in the season. And we've played, whether it's Pitt, it's Oklahoma State, it's Ole Miss, sometimes you don't get these. And who knew that we'd both be top 3 teams or 2 teams or whatever the heck it is. I don't know, 5, 10, whatever. But, we didn't know that at the time.
Now, I call shenanigans on that last part. Let's be real here. When they signed Florida State and Alabama up, this is exactly what they were hoping for. But outside of that, Ira, we had Fletcher Keel on yesterday, the web producer at WCTV, because I just wanted to get the opinion of someone who's maybe not familiar with the ins and outs of Florida State the way that someone who's been in this for a long time is, but certainly someone who's been around college football. And one of the first things that he even said was, when you start with a game like this, instead of starting with Louisiana Monroe or something like that, you see your weaknesses and you see your problems very, very early. And you saw that with the Ole Miss game last year. You saw that with, hey, maybe this defense isn't as prepared as we'd like it to be. Or, hey, maybe this offensive line needs to protect a little bit better. Maybe this team's overlooking things mentally a little too much. That's the thing about Alabama, man. I mean, Ole Miss is one thing. Alabama is a completely different monster. And every single weakness that Florida State has, if they're not shored up, they're going to be exposed there. And that's why for those offensive linemen, you feel, ooh, it's do or die time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw the same thing even going back a couple years earlier, 2014 with Oklahoma State. Not that Oklahoma State turned out to be a great team, but you saw one of the issues with that team in 2014 was they had a hard time finding the killer instinct of the national championship team. They got out to an early lead and kind of let Oklahoma State come back and really bring that game down to the wire before they pulled it out. And then that ended up being how their whole season was in terms of games going down to the wire, but FSU kind of pulling them out at least until they went down to Pasadena. And so, I think, the opening game a lot of times is either gives you an idea of what you have. And certainly when you play against an Alabama, it kind of shows you your warts. And I think that FSU's coaches, I think, are looking at this game. And that's why a lot of times coaches like Jimbo Fisher don't like games like this. I mean, I think he likes the fact that it's obviously going to bring in a lot of money to the school. They're going to make over $5 million from this game. Obviously, he likes the exposure that people are talking about FSU Alabama for all off season. It's the game everybody's talking about. But what you don't like about it is you don't get that opportunity with maybe a smaller school, a Division I AA school, or a small Division I A school to work out some kinks, to see different combinations on the offensive line, to see maybe if you like a young defensive back and want to see how he does, you're not going to throw him out there in this game. So this is going to be a game. I have a feeling this is going to be a game really for the veterans, and that's why again I think some of these jobs, and I tried to kind of follow up with Jimbo when he named some of these guys who are starters, like Jaquez Patrick is a clear-cut starter, Rick Leonard, the clear-cut starter at left tackle, Alec Eberle, the clear-cut starter at center. Are these guys the starters for forever, or are those competitions going to keep going? And I do think at some of those positions that he's going to go with the more experienced guys for sure against Alabama, but then maybe in week 2 when you've got a lesser opponent, or maybe later in the season, you might start seeing some of those other guys really challenge for those jobs. I just think that because of who they're playing in that opening game, you're definitely going to want to go with the guys who have the experience.
And I'll say this, they're not all going to be as tough as Alabama, but if you're going to play games like this, I think it's a great thing that Florida State has just made it a habit of playing the Ole Misses and the Oklahoma States, or even if it's a conference game to start the season. Florida State has said, in this world of college football, where to make a lot of money, you can do that by playing these out-of-conference games to keep these program funded, play these big-time neutral site games where bowl games are the host and it's going to be on national television. I like that Florida State doesn't just do it once in a while. I like that Florida State has said that we're going to be one of the programs that's all in, because for those upperclassmen, this is something they're used to. They played a big-time opponent last year to open the season. For the juniors, they were there for Oklahoma State. For the seniors, they were there against Oklahoma State a couple years ago. All these guys are ready to play because they've been in this situation before, rather than, well, we've always opened with ULM, or we've always opened with Chattanooga, or we've always opened with whatever, and now Alabama's a different monster. And I feel like sometimes that's what some of these programs that play Alabama and lose in these season openers fall victim to, because Alabama, for a decade now, has opened the season with one of these big-time games.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think that it could be a new experience for a lot of schools and a lot of programs. But Florida State has followed the Alabama blueprint. I mean, they're doing what Alabama did, has been doing, and really what makes it possible. And when we had Gary Stokan on from the ACC Kickoff, the CEO of the Peach Bowl and Kickoff Classic a few weeks ago, he made the comment that the college football playoff is kind of making this possible, because FSU doesn't feel like if they lost this game that their season's over. Alabama doesn't feel like if they lose this game that they're going to be dropped so far out where they can't get back into the national championship game. You just got to get back into the top 4 now. And if you're playing a high-profile opponent, a neutral site, it's not going to hurt you as much as, playing Alabama. If you lose to Alabama and it's a good game, that's going to actually do a lot more for you when it comes to the playoff committee selections than if you just, beat a ULM or somebody like that by 35. That game doesn't do anything for them, but if you play well against a quality opponent, it actually does a lot. So, I think that, it's a win-win for both programs, and but there's still a lot of challenges with it, and there's so much positive to it if you win that, kind of going back to where you talked about at the beginning, is it does really amp everything up during the offseason and certainly during preseason practice.
I think a lot of folks are just ready to skip on over to September 2nd, but before you do that, a lot of more fall camp to get to and maybe some more interesting headlines like the ones that you got yesterday. Ira, thanks so much, my friend. Always appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care.
All right, folks, we're putting a bow on this thing after this when Wake Up War Chant returns on 97.9 ESPN Radio. All right, we're putting a bow on it here. Wake Up War Chant 97.9 ESPN Radio, brought to you by our friends at For the Table, Madison Social, Central, and Township, all there in the heart of College Town. My thanks to Irish Chaffel for having that long conversation with us. Plenty of good stuff to dissect on the first day of practice, and it's a lot of positive stuff. It's not one of those, did somebody not qualify or how many injuries are there? So far, through 24 hours, and if you're a Florida State fan, you knock on wood here, everything kind of seems to be going their way. This has been a nice little opener for Jimbo Fisher and company. And, well, when you're playing a team like Alabama, you need that at the beginning of the year. Mentioned it in the first segment. ESPN's released their top 50 players. And in the top 25, you're going to find yourself 4 Florida State Seminoles. It's Tavares McFadden at 25, Josh Sweat at 24, DeAndre Francois comes in all the way at 11. On this list, and the number 1 player in the country, according to ESPN, Mr. Derwin James. He's with some pretty elite company there. Sam Darnold, number 2 at USC. Boy, when we find ourselves a USC quarterback who can play any, and I like Sam Darnold a lot, so don't take this as a shot. Boy, we immediately want to put him at the top of that list. But let's face it, he saved that season. There was talk. We forget week 2, 3, 4 of that football season. We thought to ourselves, Clay Helton seems like a guy who might only coach for 1 year in Los Angeles. And then the dude went out and won the stinking Rose Bowl, and Sam Darnold was a big reason why. Baker Mayfield, for some reason, is number 3 on this list because for whatever reason, the national media has not figured out no matter who you put in that Oklahoma system, they're going to be good with very, very, very few exceptions. Saquon Barkley from Penn State is the number 4 guy on this list. Darius Geis from LSU, number 5 at this list. Boy, those are big shoes to fill. Number 6, Lamar Jackson. The Heisman Trophy winner all the way at number 6. Guy Florida State's going to see a lot of. Minkah Fitzpatrick in that opener from Alabama is number 7. Christian Wilkins at number 8, of course, of Clemson. Ed Oliver of Houston actually makes this list at number 9. Trace McSorley all the way down at number 10, right in front of DeAndre Francois. I'll disagree with that one just a smidge bit. Other names worth knowing on this list, Josh Rosen, of course, from UCLA, the star quarterback out there. Calvin Ridley from Alabama is on this list. James Washington, the latest in the long line of great receivers that Mike Gundy has coached at Oklahoma State. And Josh Allen, for you draft nerds, you might want to see what type of season he has. The quarterback out of Wyoming has a lot of hype surrounding him, and it's worth keeping an eye on because he might just be quarterbacking your team sometime soon. Again, my thanks to Ira and my thanks to you guys for listening. Micah Mike is up next on 97.9 ESPN Radio.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.
Hey, thanks for downloading today's show. If you haven't already, why don't you rate and subscribe us? We certainly do appreciate it, and of course, we appreciate you listening anyway, so just go ahead and click that right there. You know you want to. Come on. Come on. Thanks again for letting us do the show. We love giving you all the football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, all year round. Not just football season, not just spring practice, but hopefully giving you the freshest and newest FSU content every day. Thanks, guys.